Good afternoon. Is it still morning? No, isn't it 1 o'clock? My staff's telling me a lie just so I'll mess up, right? Good afternoon. So happy you're here. I will tell you that it's been my pleasure to open the Student Success Summit for 14 years in a row. And every year we break records. And the reason why, because each and every one of you, and even more that we couldn't get in, understand clearly what we're put here to do. To me, that's power. To me, people talk about grassroots effort. People talk about what it means to establish a critical mass toward doing good. This is our critical mass. So thank you for being here. A lot of folks in the audience, I won't have a chance to call you all out, but thank you for being here. You didn't have to be here, and you chose to be here. But the most wonderful people that I want to thank are those who are on the ground doing the work that we need done, and that's you who are on our campuses, so thank you. The piece that I truly enjoy most about my job is to actually be in this position whereby I get to talk about what we've done in Kentucky and what we have yet left to do, but more than anything else is to say a thank you from someone who you hope that has a decent understanding about what you do. For those who don't know who I am, I'm Aaron Thompson. I'm the head of higher education for Kentucky, the president of the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. And I tell people all the time I'm just a pretty face because it's you who are on the campuses, the presidents, all the other folk who are in policy-making positions, but you who are in the practical, actionable made positions that are doing the work. So some of the things I'll brag about today, in fact, you deserve the credit for. Some of the things I'm going to charge us to look at, I'm not going to say you deserve the blame for it by no means, but I'm going to say that you deserve the opportunity to make it better. Truly, it is our gathering here that surmises what we've done, no doubt. It's called a summit, but more than anything else, it gives us the charge to what we need to do next. It's a continuous improvement process, and to me, that's the richness of this summit. I remember when we started this years ago, there were some people around the table when I said, I want to do this. And I hadn't been long at CPE as my role as EVP and Chief Academic Officer, saying, I really want to create a way that we can come together, learn new practices and skills, no doubt, but also have community around these issues that we very seldom talk about in a way that we can commune. And they said to me, well, you think anybody will show up? I said, well, I'll be there. We'll see who else. And it was packed. And every year it's been. Because we know this is where the rubber meets the road. You're going to see some practical evidence about how true that is. We'll show some 5-year data that you may already know about. And I only have 20 minutes, and they're wondering if I even get to my first slide before 20 minutes are over, to talk about this. But I want you to really understand that you need to understand your data. And that's what I'll start out with. Understand your data, the power of it, this disaggregated piece of it that talks to you more specifically in whatever role that you're in. But I also want you to understand the analytics, the idea that what it's telling you to do and what it leads you to do no matter what position you're in. So once again, thank you for being here. I want to thank Lily and her staff and all the people that brought it together, all the people that make it work. Without a doubt, we couldn't have it without them. We'll have a chance to thank them even more, hopefully, before the summit is over. I want to start out by the latest news. You probably have seen this. Please understand that Kentucky, you hear about us all the time. We're high poverty, college going rate's not that great, people are not as prepared when they come to us. All of those things that are absolutely true. Those haven't changed. We're making it better every day, but they haven't changed. But this is telling you that you took the student where she and he were at and got him here. We are number 2 in the country in completion gains. Give yourselves a hand. And for all my Utah friends, you 150 people that live in that state with a master's degree already, we're only a 1/10 of a point behind you, by the way. The idea that we have done the work. And the work is done, once again, by you, but also those folks who are in a position like in academic affairs with Melissa Bell and Lily and all of those who have done what they need to do in bringing the best talent to us to help us to learn from. You'll see some of those folks here that will be at the summit, and I'll introduce you to one here in a few minutes. But anyway, this is a long way, but we're happy. Just understand not everybody's going up. We are. So that's what I wanted to start out with. I'll talk about it a little more in a second, but I also want to say that even with the college going rate, by the way, it ticked up 2 percentage points this year, but we have been falling for 10 straight years, over 10 percentage point decline, down to 47.6%. We clicked up 2 percentage points. It's hard for us to do what we need to do around enrollment to get the outputs that we need to get if we can't get the students in, right? So we have to work on that. We're going to continue to work on that, but we did click up 2 points. Hopefully we stopped the slide and going in the other direction. And that takes a lot of work. And there's a whole lot of people that do that. And that's you working with our K-12 counterparts. It's our Gear Up. It's all those folks who are doing the work trying to get it up. But we also are going to see in our enrollment where last year we were in the top 5 in the country in enrollment gains, one of the first states to bounce back after COVID. You're going to see our data pretty soon where you're going to see us at the top again. So give yourselves a hand. So there's a lot of things that are going well in Kentucky, but the thing we're going to talk about a lot is, okay, we got them, what do we do with them once we get them? And in fact, you're going to see some of these outputs now. And know that there's more to do. And let me be really clear. We focus on the students that need it the most, give them what they need in such a direct way, everybody rises. This is not a zero-sum game, folks. This is not saying that if you help all those that need the help the most, that others will not benefit. As a matter of fact, we have evidence that in fact they do. But we better focus on people that in fact needs the input to become a productive member of this society is the way I see it. I'm not saying they're not good people before, but we know that the more education they get, the better opportunity they have of making more money, better health, and so on. So it's our job to get them where they need to go, and it's our job to provide them with the kind of inputs that they need to have to get them there. So that's what we focus on a lot. So we look in a disaggregated way how well we've done on those indicators, whether it's a leading indicator like retention, or if it's an indicator like graduation rates. And what you'll see in the last 5 years, that overall, look at this. Our retention rates overall have gone up 6.4 percentage points. For those who are not statisticians, a percentage point is a lot of a percent, right, to get there. And you'll see with our public institutions, they've gone up too, and to move that much is actually not an easy task. But you see, we are closing gaps when we do that. So it's important to understand that we still have gaps that exist, and to not forget those gaps as we're working to improve. As we improve everybody, we have to improve those that are not moving up as fast, faster. That's what gap closing is. Graduation rates, same way. Now you'll also look here and notice something. That one of the biggest growing populations we've had in the state in the last many years as far as enrollment has been our underrepresented minority students. How many of you knew that? It's been the only consistent. But we still have to do what we need to do even if we get them. We've done well. The area we haven't done nearly as well in, even though we probably have done better than what these points indicate, is our low income. So we have to double down in this area. The reason why we've increased the metric in our performance funding model from a 3% up to an 8%. And that's what we were charged to do. The legislature put a law in place that said we can no longer use the term underrepresented minority and asked me and the presidents to come together and define what should we use instead to define underrepresented. we looked at everything and we came up with the first generation metric. So you'll see a new metric this year called underrepresented that is based on first generation. So this is an improvement slide. This tells you where we're at, and we should celebrate those because it's huge. But it also tells us that we're going to have to double down on some areas we need to double down on. Unmet financial need is one of the best metrics I think we've ever used. And it's important for me to say that when we look at the dollars we give out to students, we give more than both the state and federal aid put together coming out of your campuses. And the way we look at that is, what do you need to have in order for you to get where you need to go? So we, in fact, concentrated on that. This has been a huge improvement. Our unmet need has gone down tremendously only because you're now looking at that as a way to help students succeed while they're in college. In the past, we used scholarships as an entry point, but we seldom used any dollars toward completion. Now that's our big focus. And so thank you for actually doing that. And it matters as students get to the next level. Some of the items I'm really impressed with, we hear a lot about the misnomers, about how much debt people are incurring. And you know, you hear the $120,000 for every student. Kentucky, we're going to brag. We have actually, and I think these numbers, Travis, I thought the number, are these the right numbers? Okay, you make sure I say the right thing, man. But we're down overall of all students that come to post-secondary down to 41% of those borrowing money. This is 14 percentage points down. Do you realize how big that is? Huge. We're also down, we're closing gaps in these areas. The average amount of people borrowing money has dropped significantly, down to the amount of debt that they carry, down to about 39%. So we're focusing also how to help more students graduate with no debt or little debt. So we know that they have to get started in life somehow, the new home and so on. So we look at affordability truly from a holistic perspective. And this is important to so many of our students as we travel around the state and talk with them. And I did over 3,000 students, and they told us in many cases, well, Dr. Thompson, I don't think I can afford to go to college. And when we look at them, we find out that they can. As a matter of fact, we left $58 million of Pell on the table last year because they hadn't filled out the FAFSA, right? And if they don't get the FAFSA, they're not going to get things like what we give here in state with CAP and KTG. So it's important to understand that we let them know that they can, and sometimes they cannot afford it. And so we have to take that in consideration also. So we have to look at the unmet need when we do this work. So this is another area. And you see just how much we're focusing on low income and those that have less money. You've heard about the enrollment cliff. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that other than to say that it's of concern to all of us. But we still have 50% of our students that are graduating from high school not going to college in Kentucky. So I'm telling people, let's worry about the enrollment cliff, but let's worry more about those students that we should be getting that we're not getting. And that's those traditional age population groups as well as the non-traditional age. Now, this is what I'm really proud of. You know our 60 by 30 North Star. Everybody knows that by 2030, 60% of all of our population will have a credential that matters. Now, our data looks a little bit different than Lumina because Lumina uses assumptive data. We don't have to in the state because we have KY stats. We can use enumerated data. We can know who's getting it. So they leave out a significant portion of our people with a credential from our community college that we can actually count. So we are now at 56.2%. I am dedicated to at least see that North Star at that 60% before I leave. And that's the important piece of the conversation that we need to have. And this does not happen in this state without us being concerned about it. There's no way you can have the economy that's going to continue to grow without higher education being a powerful means by making that happen. but our work is under scrutiny. Everybody talks about higher education isn't valuable. In many cases, the people who talk about that will have a degree themselves or want their kids to have it, but that's another side comment I probably shouldn't make. But the point being is higher education is valuable at all levels. It's valuable with the outcomes, with the income. It's also valuable in the health statistics, because if you don't have one, you got a greater chance of going to prison. You got a greater chance of actually being on unemployment. You got a greater chance of having worse health, being on Medicaid. It's a return on investment that's huge, and we've got to do a better job. We may be a choir, but you've heard me say this before, and it is an academic term, we suck at singing. You know, it's our job to tell people the importance of higher education at every level we need to, so we can give you return on investment data. We have it, but we need to also be talking about all the other values. So I'm going to ask you to sing. One of the charges we're giving you today is to really sing better. And we've got to, at every level we need to. There's too many people in this state that would actually enjoy, first of all, but they would also be very clearly happy if they had that higher education certificate or degree. So, as I start thinking about what we need to do for the future, you're going to see us double down on several things. We're going to talk about credentials of value. Value, quality, and all of that's now going to be our theme, not just the outcomes with our quantitative data, but we're going to talk about what it means to have quality. We want to talk about what it means for every employer to know that when they hire a student from our institution, they're getting someone of quality. And they've told us over and over again, hundreds and thousands of employers saying, Thompson, you do a great job of actually training our folks in technical skills, but you need to do a lot better in, quote unquote, those soft skills. So what we are doing is we're looking at credentials of values. We're going to talk about strengthening the academic quality. We're not just looking at it, we're going to put things in place. We need to align our curriculum, whether it's a dual credit, to where they know that they're reaching what they need to reach toward a degree or certificate. We've got to do that better so they don't end up with 12, 15, 20, 30 hours that doesn't count toward anything. But they also can see the hope of the future. Our data show that if in fact they take dual credit courses, they have a greater chance of being successful in college, and moreover, the more underrepresented you are, the more success you have. So we've also got to work to get them in the pipeline they need to work into. Also, broadening our support systems. We've got to do a better job of looking at the student holistically. And we've done that since we've taken away many of the developmental ed courses, but how do we help them to know where they're at to get where they need to go? And that's going to be even more of a challenge when we think about basic needs, think about mental health, we think about all those things. You're going to see coming out of CPE a lot of work in that area. You're also going to see a lot around our graduate profile. You know that already, something I'm very proud of. Being able to take those 10 essential skills and not just say that you got them based on some little test in the end, but you know that it's academically threaded throughout the campus, in our curriculum, in our pedagogy, in our partnerships with employers and others. You're going to see us work on that a lot. This is called good change. This is called the things that we need to do in order to get where we need to go. The other piece, and I'll leave you with this as we kind of close what we need to close, and I'll bring our speaker up, is to know that there are all kinds of things that are happening around us. We see what's happening in DC. We see what's happening in the state. I'm not here to say it's good or bad. I'm here to say that our job in higher education is still to focus on the student. It's to focus on their success. It's to focus on the things we need to get focused on. If we get too lost in the churn, we will not do the things that we need to do. I will tell you at CPE, we're going to keep focusing on the student. We're going to keep focusing on what it takes to have every student in this state to get what they need in order to be successful. And our job is to help you to do your work. So when we talk about collaboration, it is with the legislature, the governor's office. It is with the administrators on the campus. It is with the faculty and staff. But as much as anything else, it's also helping the student to know that they've got partners in us. So we ask you and invite you at the Council on Post-Secondary Education to reach out to us with the strengths that we have and help you to be that person that's going to be everything that that student needs. Thank you very much. So it's my pleasure to introduce a friend of mine that I've known for a long time. I won't tell you how long. I'll let him tell you if he chooses to give our age away. But Tristan Denley, Dr. Denley is the Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Innovation at the Louisiana Board of Regents. I knew Tristan when he was in my position at Tennessee. And we worked a lot together then, but Tristan has been the architect of a lot of innovative items. And when we thought about putting this together, we wanted to talk about folk that have done real innovation. And so Tristan was the top of our list to actually talk with. Before that, before Louisiana, he was the Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Chief Academic Officer at the University System of Georgia. Was Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at the Tennessee Board of Regents, and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Austin Peay. Originally from Penzance, England, Dr. Denley earned his PhD in mathematics from Trinity College at Cambridge and held positions in Sweden, Canada, and the University of Mississippi. All of those are similar institutions, by the way. Throughout his career, he has taken a hands-on approach in a variety of innovative, impacting items that will help students succeed. And amongst his most recent work has been the development and implementation of a comprehensive system-scaled student success strategy, the Momentum Year is called, that transforms developmental education and advising. Please, let's welcome Dr. Denley. Come on up, Tristan.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Well, look, I don't know that I could be more happy about following somebody, because I think you've just heard some incredible news about change that is not change that happens overnight, right? This is a legacy of year after year after year of incredible change here in Kentucky, and I want to say a personal word of congratulations to President Thompson and to you too for really these incredible statistics. But what I want to do today is to talk a little bit about Louisiana. Now, as you can tell, I am born and bred in Louisiana. No, of course I'm not. And actually, I discovered something today. Apparently, it's not against state law to say Austin Peay here in Kentucky as well. It's interesting. But what I want to do is to talk about the work that we are doing in Louisiana every day, which in so many ways mirrors the work that you are doing too. We too have a 60% goal. As you can see, we are not quite as far along with our 60% goal as you all are. It is the case that we too differ in our count with the Lumina Foundation, but in so many ways, and I talked to the Lumina folk too, I mean, in so many ways, it is because of the work of the Lumina Foundation that we actually built the capacity to be able to directly count these things, so we don't have to guess. So this is where we are. We're at 51%. That's the highest educational attainment that the state of Louisiana has ever had. We're also at an all-time high in the number of credentials that we have awarded to the number of completers. Now, this is the kind of the journey that we've been on in Louisiana. You can see, back when we started, the attainment rate in Louisiana was right around 44 point something percent. And getting from where we were to where we are today at 51, you can see it's been anything but a smooth ride. My suspicion is that at some point you turn the news on and you heard about something that happened in Louisiana, often more than one thing that happened in Louisiana, and a lot of them were disastrous. And so, in so many ways, this journey from 44 to 51 is a testimony to just the stick-at-itness of a state like that. And it's just really astonishing to think about the ways in which people have doubled down when times go hard to be able to make the progress that they made. But you can see that we are now very firmly on track to get to that 60%. And it's, as I've said to my board chair, it's not an if, it's a when. We will absolutely reach that 60% goal. It's not a wish, as it is, I think, in many states, actually. It really is a destination, just like it's a destination here in Kentucky as well. I sort of reflect on the scale of the work, and I think this is really important for you all to take into consideration too. So I'm a mathematician by trade. I will even say that in mixed company, and sometimes people laugh when I say that. But the reality is that, when we trot out statistics like this, I think it's forgivable to say, well, you know what? A percentage point here, percentage point there, does it really make much odds? We moved from last year at 49.5% to now 51. It went up by 1.5 points. Well, that's exciting. And I think that's true, right? The reality is that for much of the time in our lives, unless it's an interest rate, an increase by a percentage point is not that big a deal, right? But this actually is a statistic, and the one here in Kentucky too, is a statistic where moving by a percentage point is a really big deal. A really big deal. Because, at least in Louisiana, this represents 23,000 more people who have a credential of value that didn't before. Right? You think about the transformation that has in a family, right? Now you're going to be talking about studying people who are first-generation students, and we've always sort of bandied that term around. I think it's one of those things to really reflect on. For so many people, how many people were here were a first-generation graduate? Keep your hand up if it's true that your kids went to college. Right. Right. The reality is that for so many people, first generation is not last generation, right? It's the beginning of a whole new sequence of history. And so 23,000 more people who now have a credential, the vast majority of those people are, of course, first generation. And those 23,000 people are now 23,000 families, where more than likely from here on out, they also will now be going to college. We changed multi-generational poverty in Louisiana, and we're doing it household by household. And that 23,000 people, that's 23,000 households whose futures have been changed. That makes sense? Maybe, I don't know, how many people saw the Super Bowl last night? How many people wish they hadn't seen the Super Bowl last night? No, but so from the bottom of the chart to the top of the chart, that's a packed house of the Superdome. What you watched last night, that's everybody watching in the Superdome who now has a credential that didn't before. For me, that gets me excited. I mean, that's real, right? You can visualize that. It's very hard to visualize a percentage point here or a percentage point there. But that's what you're doing every day. The reality is that one by one by one, you're stepping your way up those extra 4% to be from where you are to that 60. And it's much more than just a couple of percentage points that you're moving actual families' lives, and that's incredibly powerful. That's why I got into higher education. My guess is that's why you got into education as well. So, I think it's well worth us thinking about today, and that's what Aaron said too, thinking about, well, okay, this 60% goal, it's much more than a number, right? It represents a future, and we need to think about, well, what is that future and how can we get there? As you might imagine, in Louisiana, there's plenty of people who ask me, well, okay, I know we're getting towards this 60% goal, but where'd that number 60 come from, and why are we so excited about getting there, and what does it even mean anyway? This chart is at least trying to help people understand why it is that this 60% is so important. The outside, on the right-hand side of this thing, you'll see these two little pie charts. The outside ring, to get the outside ring, what I did last year was I went to Lightcast, which is a labor economy kind of website service, and I pulled all of the different job ads in the state of Louisiana for last year. Make sense? And then I pulled out of there, if that job ad said, we want you to have this, that, or the other level of education, then I just, sorted them out like that. And when you do that, this is the distribution you get. 32% of the job ads said you needed a high school diploma, and 18% said you needed a certificate or certification or industry-based credential. 11% associate, and you get the idea. Go all the way around. Of course, some of the job ads didn't specify. They're not in the chart, but actually increasing proportion year on year on year on year are now asking for specific levels of education. Well, here's the amazing thing. Future's already with us, right? 60% is, yeah, sure enough, it came from a think tank in Georgetown who anticipated what in Louisiana will be the need in 2030, that 60% of jobs will need some credential past high school by 2030. What's true in Louisiana is the future's already here. Last year, 68% of jobs, 68% of new jobs, 68% of newly advertised jobs already wanted some level of credential above high school. Make sense? My guess is very similar here in Kentucky too. Here's the kicker. On the inside is the current educational attainment in the state of Louisiana. So we've already seen that if 51% of people have credentials, 49% of people have high school diploma or less. That's the big blue thing on the right-hand side. The others, you can see 14% have certifications, 8% associate, all the way around to 3% who have doctoral degrees. Now you can compare the two. We're short on everything. Well, except for high school diploma, we got that. We are short on everything. What I say over and over and over to those who ask is, it isn't, sometimes we hear people are graduating, but they're graduating in the wrong things. You ever heard that? You're graduating people in things that don't lead to anything. You're graduating people into, no, you know what? We're not. I've got all those data. We are not graduating people in things that lead nowhere. In fact, a lot of the things that they say lead nowhere lead all kinds of different places. But the reality is that in Louisiana, the carpet's just too small for the room. The number of graduates that we graduate are just not enough to be able to fill the demand that real employers in the state of Louisiana are today saying, we want to hire, are today advertising for. And my guess is something very similar is true here in Kentucky too. So, this I think is a really compelling case to those who doubt to say, no, we're not just making this up. The reality is that real employers right today, this is what they are asking for more certifications, more associates, more bachelor's degrees, more master's degrees, more doctoral degrees, more of all of it. And so it's our business then to try to help enable people, sure, change their lives through the education that we provide. And part of that is the education then leads to them being able to get a well-paying job that they can support their family. Does that make sense? But I think it's a really different picture than you just see all over the place. All over the place you see these questions about whether or not higher education is worth it, whether higher education is worth the investment, the time, the whatever. What we know is that on average, people who graduate with some kind of credential earn $1 million more across their lives. I don't know what college you go to, but it doesn't cost anything like $1 million to go to college in Louisiana. Oh, that sounded good. Yeah, cool, thank you. So what are we trying to do to be able to meet this need then? Overwhelmingly, the strategies we're trying to use are these: to increase college going, to recognize all the credentials of value, not just some of them, and to improve student success. And so what I'm going to do just in the last few minutes that we have together is talk about just an overview of at least some of these strategies. The reality is there is no silver bullet in higher education. Anyone who tells you so is just lying. The reality is that even silver buckshot is a stretch. You have to go at this in all kinds of different ways, but you want to try to make sure that all of those ways dovetail together. So what I want to do is just talk a little bit about what it is we're trying to do in Louisiana. I'm going to zoom in on improving college success. If this is the Student Success Summit, that seemed like a decent place to be. So the way that we are working with student success is using this sort of networked framework approach to college success that is really based on a lot of evidence over the years. You can see in Louisiana, we use this momentum approach, but we spell momentum a little bit differently in Louisiana. In Louisiana, that people giggle a lot more about that, but that's okay. Tough audience. So the way that we work with this is that we're going to have 4 what I call structural threads. 4 structural threads work like this. Choice. First of all, it's really important for us as members of the higher education community to realize that going to college requires an enormous number of really important choices. And it's often the case that first-generation students and underrepresented students do not have around them the advice structure to enable them to make those kinds of choices. And the trouble is those choices don't make themselves. So how many times have you ever talked to somebody about going to college and you say, well, what do you want to do there? And they say, I don't know. Is that a familiar ring? Maybe with your own kids. The statistics say this, that most students who are undecided when they go to college drop out before they ever figure it out. Let me say that again. Most people who go to college undecided drop out before they figure it out. And dropping out goes an awful lot like this, right? They're a first-generation student. Nobody around them went to college. At Thanksgiving, they go have family Thanksgiving, and their Aunt Edna's there. And Aunt Edna says, so what are you doing over there at the college? And they say, well, you know, I'm kind of undecided right now. And she said, well, that just sounds like a waste of time. No, I mean, I didn't go to college, and look, your brother didn't go to college. And before they know it, they realize they don't know why they're going to college either. And then they don't go anymore. Enabling people to have that purpose is extraordinarily important. And so ways in which we can enable that kind of choice, even just that choice, enabling students to be able to make as much of the choice as they can right from the start, some kind of academic focus, meta-major kind of approach, enabling them to realize, you know what, that's right. I know I want to do something in business. I don't know whether that's marketing or finance or economics, but it's businessy something. Or I know I want to be in one of the ologies, or I know I want to do math or physics or something like that. That's okay. And then arranging our curriculum so that they are able to deepen that choice as they go along, it's a really important thing to do. Of course, there are other choices about housing and financial aid and all those kinds of things, but making sure that we intentionally support people in making those informed choices is powerful. So choice. If you're going to choose a pathway, we need to make sure that that pathway is clear. I've said over the years 100 times, the reality is we think we've created pathways, students think we created a maze. This is not the same. So what are ways in which we can demystify that maze? What are ways in which we can build those pathways so that they are clear, clearly articulated, inside and outside the classroom, and watch more pathways that make people feel like they're studying what they thought they chose right from the very start. If you're going to have pathways, then you need milestones to be able to make sure that we can trace progress. Yes, we want to celebrate those milestones as we go along, but we also want to make sure that we know when people do not achieve those milestones so we can step in and do something about it. Over the years, and I'll zoom in on one in just a minute, math and English has been an incredibly powerful milestone, recognizing whether or not people in their very first year pass math and English. This is more than lip service. This is absolutely crucial. But of course, it's not the only milestone. And then lastly, engagement. The reality is that higher education is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And anyone who has ever tried to do anything that takes any length of time knows that there will be good times and there will be bad times. And so what are ways in which we can help support people and engage people through the tough times so they can prosper in the good times engagement is incredibly powerful, all the way to the end, right? So what are ways right from the beginning that we can get you engaged, but also what are ways in which, as a junior, as a senior, we can enable you to be involved in work-based learning or internships, or ways that we can help you connect with employers afterwards. All of those things really important. So those are those structural threads. And then cutting across that are what these things I call foundational strands that really recognize the identities of the students that we serve. We really need to make sure that we have strategies that work for everyone, for all of our students, whether or not in the past they have been well served or not. We want to make sure that we really are crafting strategies that work for all of our students. And, ooh, that was interesting. There we go. And then we want to make sure that we have strategies that are affordable. And when I say affordable, I want to make sure that we're not just thinking about money, although that we are thinking about money. Because the reality is that in the end, people have to pay for this. But it may well be that affordability is about time. It may well be that it's about family obligations. Maybe it's about food insecurity. Maybe it's about homelessness. Maybe it's about all of those things knit together, because the reality is that to meet and expand the footprint of higher education today, we need to be able to engage with students who would never have been part of higher education, perhaps as we experienced it in the past. And that means affordability in a very holistic understanding is absolutely crucial. And then lastly, learning mindsets. Because the reality is we now know, all kinds of evidence to show, and I know Chris is here, hope you go to his talk a little bit later on. We now know that the way in which students understand themselves as learners and how it is that they understand their part in the learning environment around them is just as crucial to success as preparation ever was. And so how do we understand that? How do we now look at the education we provide through the lens of growth and fixed mindset, or belonging and inclusion, or purpose and value, to understand how do we communicate to those who might doubt, know that they really can succeed in this and that their succeeding matters. So this is the overall framework that we're employing. I'm going to just zoom in on a couple of things about this, and the first is about pathways. I want to talk about, as I'm thinking about pathways, yes, I want to think about it from a curricular point of view, but I also want to think about it from a how do we construct pathways across the state point of view. So we have invested really heavily in dual enrollment. In dual enrollment as a strategy to be able to turn that hockey stick around about college going. Just like Kentucky, in Louisiana, we have had a 10-year steady decline year on year of high school students right out of high school going to college. You can well imagine that is not a recipe for us to get to our 60% goal. So how do we change that? What we've decided to do is to really invest in opening opportunities for students in high school to already begin their college journey. And we've been successful in this. This year, we went past the 40,000 mark of people involved in dual enrollment. We've had 3 years of double-digit percentage increases in dual enrollment. And I'm very happy to tell you that we too this year, for the very first time, our college going rate out of high school went up, actually went up by more than 3.5 percentage points, put us right back to where we were before COVID in 2019. And the trend looks like it's not, 1 point is not a trend, right? But other data that we have suggests this is not the last time that we will see that kind of increase. So what we're doing is working. What I want to sort of to point is that doing that, but doing that in and of itself is not enough. Doing that in and of itself is not enough. And so we've surrounded these strategies that we're doing around making dual enrollment available by other strategies, other policies that knit that dual enrollment work into something more. So I'll give you an example of that. In Louisiana, you've been able to go to university for 20 years by having an ACT score of this or a high school GPA of that. And you can imagine, depending on how high the ACT score is or how high the GPA is, you can go to different institutions. And then my suspicion is something similar is true here. What I think has been sort of interesting over the years is that when a high school student said to you, you think I should do this dual enrollment thing? And you say, yeah, absolutely. And they say, now, will that help me get into college? What do you say? Because you say, well, if you get into college, then you could, use it as college credit. And they say, well, but could it help me get in? You say, well, no, it can't help you get in. But if you get in, then you see what I mean? And it's sort of peculiar because over the years, we've argued a lot about whether ACT scores or GPAs are a better indicator of future success in college. You know what's a really good indicator of future success in college? A demonstrated record of collegiate level success. Dual enrollment. So we changed that. So in Louisiana now you can go to university in one of three ways. You can have an ACT score of this, or a high school GPA of that, or you can have this, that, or the other number of early college credits, and that may be AP or IB or CLEP or dual enrollment. Now, if you say to me honestly, are there really going to be that many students who have dual enrollment credit but don't have a good ACT score? Well, probably not that many. But does it change the value proposition about taking dual enrollment courses? Yes, it does, of course. Because now the reality is that I can say honestly to a student, yes, you know what? You can begin your college journey right today. This course that you're taking, not only is it a course that you're taking so you can do it later, you are beginning right now, right? And the success that you have leads for you to be a way for you to be able to earn your place in university. Changes the value proposition. Now, the trick is that I have to do a little bit more than that. Because the trouble is that over the years, yes, they could take that dual enrollment course, but am I convinced that it actually applies when they get there? So we have to talk about transfer. Here's what we did just this last year or so. We brought together about 600 faculty from across the state to talk about transfer. As you can imagine, they were just, well, let's not go there. Because the reality is transfer in higher education is kind of one of those things we don't really want to talk about a lot, right? So that's why I'm going to talk about it. What we did was we said, okay, look, what we want to be able to do is to talk to that dual enrollment student or talk to that community college student and say, you know what, if you take these courses, then I can look you in the eyes and guarantee to you that no matter which university you go to, if they have that subject, all of the courses that you're taking will not only transfer, they will count towards the degree you're trying to get. Now, the reality is, as you can imagine, that means that then we need to talk specifically about which degrees, because courses that will be guaranteed to count in psychology won't be quite the same courses as the courses that will be guaranteed to count in history or nursing or business, or you get the idea? But the reality is that what we could do is by sort of doing a very deep curricular analysis of all of the curricula across the four-year institutions, we could do the legwork for these faculty committees. We could go to these faculty committees and say, okay, look, across a curriculum of 60 hours that would lead to an associate degree, it looks like all of you in the room would be perfectly fine with all of these 17 courses. But there's 3 courses that you need to talk about. And what those 3 or 4 or 5 or 2 or sometimes 1 course, what they are is going to vary wildly discipline to discipline, but we need you to talk it out. And what we need for you to do is not necessarily all agree in the same way, but what we need you to do is to find, is it the case that this set of courses on your campus, you could find a place for all of them. And the place you find for all of them may not be the same as the person sitting next to you, but they could also find a place on their campus in their own way. Does that make sense? The kinds of things they had to talk about were things like this. They needed to talk specifically about specific discipline-specific courses. This is outside Gen Ed now, right? We're looking for a curriculum of 60 hours. So our Gen Ed is 39. I don't know how many yours are, but we needed to go past that, just the Gen Ed courses all being generally applicable. We needed to go past that. We needed to talk about specific general education electives. Because you can imagine in business, the social science courses probably needed to be macro and micro. Whereas in education, the social science courses probably need to be general psych. Right? In nursing, the sciences needed to be biology and chemistry. You get the idea that there are going to be places where particular disciplines really have an opinion. We needed to talk about math. We needed to have a frank conversation about the fact that, you know what, college algebra, despite the name, is not the course that everybody needs to take. If you're not in a calculus-based discipline, what are you taking college algebra for? So we needed to talk specifically about those math requirements, and we needed to talk about foreign languages. Because the reality is, and I'm sure it's true at many of your campuses, there are disciplines where your college requires you to take a foreign language, and there are disciplines where a foreign language is actually germane to the discipline itself. And those things aren't quite the same. I was sharing with somebody earlier. Earlier in my career, you heard it in my CV, I spent some time in Sweden, so I speak relatively reasonable Swedish. It's not helped me be a mathematician over the years, but I sure enough can speak it, and I really value that ability to be able to speak a foreign language. And just a fun tip, ChatGPT also speaks other languages. So just for fun, one day I was driving along in the car and I was talking to a ChatGPT agent and I said, do you speak other things, other languages? And it said, yeah, what do you want to speak? I said, could we speak in Swedish? And it said, ja visst. And I said, okay, my Swedish is a bit rusty. Could you limit yourself to only the 1,000 most commonly used words in Swedish? And it said, okay. And so we talked Swedish for like about 20 minutes. It was absolutely fascinating. Again, an incredibly powerful learning experience, but we needed to fish out in this work whether that ability to talk a foreign language, is that germane to the discipline, in which case maybe it needs to be in the transfer pathway, or is it a collegiate level university requirement, in which case, sure, the students can then do that foreign language after they get there. Does that make sense? But they had to talk all of this through. I'll give you one little aphorism about one of the problems that we had. I met with one group of faculty. They said, that, look, some business faculty, they said, we would love to do this, but it's impossible in our discipline. I said, well, okay, tell me about this impossibility. They said, well, it all comes down to business ethics. I said, okay. They said, yeah, so half of the schools in the room, we require business ethics. Half of the schools in the room, we do not require business ethics. It's impossible. So I said, well, look, tell me about these schools that do not require business ethics. Is it, A, that you don't require business ethics, but if someone took a course in business ethics, you could find a place for it in the curriculum? Or is it that you don't require business ethics because business ethics is an anathema to you? If they have business ethics on their transcript, like they may not graduate just because they have business ethics on their transcript. Well, they laughed and said, no, of course it's not the second one, it's the first one. And so, okay, well then we can solve this, right? Either you put business ethics in the pathway, in which case, if they happen to go to a school where they don't require business ethics, you say you can find a place, or you don't put business ethics in the pathway, in which case they can just take it when they get there. Apparently it wasn't impossible. So it was a whole sequence of conversations that we had like that led us to build these 24 universal transfer pathways. We did it in about 12 months, year from start to finish. You can see they're, really the overwhelmingly popular 24 degree programs across all of the schools. Now we can say, cybersecurity, I guess, is the odd man out. that we were building some programs in cyber. The cyber faculty were so excited about it, they say, oh, we want to do that too. And so they added cybersecurity in as well. But all the others, I wish cybersecurity was that big, but it's not. All the others, they're the most populous, most chosen degree programs across the state. Now we can, with all honesty, say to everyone, right, to that dual enrollment student, to that nursing student, to that associate student, really from wherever it is that they come, you take these courses, the courses that are on this exact pathway, and now we can guarantee, you don't have to be clairvoyant, no matter where you go, no matter which public institution in the state you go to, we can guarantee that those courses not only transfer, that they really will count towards the degree that you're earning. You think of the power that that has, again, on the way in which people think about their journey across higher education. And only we're able to do this, right? The reality is that it's only by coming together as a community that we're able to realize that this can be done. So I think I'm pretty close to overstaying my welcome. So that's what it takes for Louisiana to prosper. I think it's the same kinds of ideas in so many ways that you built on here in Kentucky, and I know would be happy to try to help Kentucky prosper too. So with that, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 25 Student Success Summit. I'm Lily Massa-McKinley, and I work with the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative. It is exciting to see so many friendly and wonderful faces in the room. I'm glad that you're here despite the flu going around. I know I had 2 kiddos in my house this week, and I literally stayed away from them the entire week. I was like, I am sorry. Somebody else is going to help you. All right, so my job here today is just to give you a little bit of a preview of kind of the work that is going on broadly across the state that many of you and your campus teams are deeply engaged in, and to make some connections between across these different pathways of work that we're doing. So the collaborative, as many of you I know already know, launched in 2021 with support from the James Graham Brown Foundation to really think about how we can work differently here in Kentucky to address our common challenges and our common priorities for student success. So our team is charged with helping build our capacity across the state for leading change and for innovation. So we're really excited. The summit is one of the big things, one of the most exciting things that we get to do every year, and see everybody coming together in person. Oops. We have really kind of developed a student success framework that allows us to hopefully communicate and identify a coherent approach to student success. I say this all the time, student success is literally everything under the sun. And so through conversations with our campus partners, we have identified some of the big priorities, some of the big opportunities that we saw for working together. And one of the mantras that we talk about all the time is that we can accomplish more together than any of us can achieve on our own. And I think that we have definitely seen that through the collaboration, the communities of practice, and all the ways that we have been working so far. Specifically, we are really focusing in on some specific priority areas for how the collaborative is working across the state and hopefully adding value to your campuses. One of those is through data and research. So we're working on custom data dashboards that are really not only tracking some of the primary areas or the key performance indicators for our strategies, but are also looking at the actual interventions and the work that we're doing together. So we really want to see if this network improvement community is making a difference on transfer rates for those campuses that are engaged, for example. So we are working on these data dashboards. We'll be launching them this year. The first one on transfer comes out within a month, and then really excited to follow that with Gateway Course Success, Student Basic Needs, and Adult Attainment as well. And not only the quantitative data, but really trying to make meaning of the data. Like Dr. Thompson referenced, it's about the analysis, about what is this telling us that we should do. And so we look at it quantitatively to identify any opportunities for gaps or potential interventions that we might want to try, but we're also really talking to students. And so we have a lot of student voice research projects that we are promoting to share with faculty members who would like to engage. We did some student voice research the other year with basic needs. We've got a project coming up with parenting students, and we have another project coming up on understanding transfer. So why students might finish an Associate of Arts or a Science and then not transfer within a year to the next university. So really trying to listen to the students and understand what is it that we can do differently, and then allowing that to guide some of the work that we do. We also obviously are big focused on professional development, whether that is a Student Success Summit, it is a community of practice, it is a webinar series, it is technical assistance. We are really trying to identify the opportunities that will add the most value to your campus initiatives. The Leadership Exchange is a program that we began this last fall, and we have an amazing cohort of about 30 campus leaders that are engaged right now, and they have been going through various modules and workshops with various change leadership strategies and techniques. And so these folks are engaged in some of the work of the collaborative, but they're also using these tools on their own campuses, hopefully bringing collaborative partners together, building those relationships, using continuous improvement to try new small tests of change, and then seeing, what is the difference that this is making. Really excited about the Leadership Exchange program. And then finally, we also offer the Impact Exchange, which is an online knowledge and resource hub where we share resources, tools, playbooks, et cetera, and also have community and conversation around the issues in student success. Excited to introduce pretty fresh faces to y'all if you've been working with us. We have Ariane Jet Seals, who's leading our basic needs work, along with Olivia Morris-Bush. Stephanie Chung is new to our team, and she's leading our transfer work. Ashley O'Neill, brand new to the team, leading our Gateway Course Success. Tracy Teeter with our adult attainment. And then Nan and I kind of provide support and vision for most of the rest of it. So how are we taking that team and trying to lead statewide work? Well, it is not just those 6 individuals that are doing anything. We're working with over 70 campus and community partners from 31 different agencies and campuses across Kentucky to really guide and drive the work that we're doing. And that infrastructure looks like guiding teams, which advise, they help problem solve, they help prioritize, and they help promote the work of the collaborative. And it also looks like senior fellows who are actually part-time employees of CPE. So they work about 10 hours a month helping drive the different strategy areas forward. So we're really excited to be able to engage so many campus partners in figuring out what it is that we should do next and how we're going to go about doing it. So I want to tell you a little bit about each of the different strategy areas so you can get a taste. All of this is going to be very connected to the work for all the conversations that we're having here at the summit. So transfer, we're improving those process, partnerships, and pathways, helping students on their journey to a bachelor's degree. And many of these are going to look very similar because we're doing this work really parallel across our strategy areas. But we're launching that data dashboard, providing insight briefs on the data, student voice research project coming up very soon. We have our 3rd network improvement community in action right now between Northern Kentucky University and Gateway Community and Technical College. And we are also going to be very soon launching a transfer community of practice that's open to all partners in Kentucky to join. And then, as Tristan kind of alluded to in his opening keynote, talking about the great work in Louisiana around transfer, statewide transfer pathways, very interested in exploring what that could look like in Kentucky as well. Related to Gateway Course Success and our focus on centering student needs and removing barriers to improve their outcomes in foundational courses, we know that Gateway courses ultimately lead to retention and ultimately lead to completion, and so that is why they are so critical in our students' early momentum milestones. 2 big things I want to highlight here, and you'll have an opportunity to to go to a session focused on faculty mindset. But we are really going to be promoting a professional development opportunity for faculty that teach Gateway courses to participate in a cohort and professional development that's ongoing around how do you incorporate a strong faculty growth mindset that allows students to know that you believe in them, and then students believe in themselves and their own growth mindset improves. So it is very much a wonderful PD, and there is an opening concurrent session that'll focus on this issue. We've also had Gardner Institute with us today, working with our Institutional Transformation Initiative campuses, specifically on Gateway Course Success, Gateway Course Analytics, and all of the first steps in that process of a Gateway Course redesign. So we're also exploring opportunities to expand opportunities for our campus partners to join that initiative as well. And if you are not currently involved, we offer a Gateway Course community of practice that is open to all and really shares best practices. The team of senior fellows has done an amazing job creating great content and providing research, and just I think it's a wonderful community. Basic needs. Everybody is working on basic needs, I know. So we're really focused on increasing access to basic needs support for our post-secondary students, but also increasing access to post-secondary education for individuals receiving state supports. Our work in basic needs is in the next iteration going to really focus on communications. It's focusing in on reducing stigma through some student testimonials. It's focusing in on creating kind of a one-stop shop so that students know how to access basic needs resources from their campuses. And it's also about creating a trusted sources training. One thing that we learned from our student voice research was that when students are in crisis, they go to the person that they trust. And so that is all of you here in this room, whether you're the director of the Career Center, you are an English faculty member, you are an academic advisor, or even our campus staff and colleagues that work in food services or janitorial services. So how can we create a trusted sources training so that folks know how to support students that may have a basic needs concern? And then we have a wonderful community of practice as well. And I will say that the connector partnership that we have with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services has been ongoing. It is a continuous improvement project for sure, and we are looking to increase and scale that benefits accessibility work across our campuses. Very excited for our adult attainment strategy. We did have the adult learner convening this fall where we really focused a lot on the different strategy areas for adult attainment, but we are looking to really expand access, innovation, and partnerships in higher ed to support our adult learners to return and complete. We have some upcoming projects related to childcare solutions and parenting student voice. I think that this is one of our big issues that is a very common issue with both higher education as well as workforce, and so looking for those partnership opportunities there. We have some credit for prior learning coaching that's going on. We have 6 campuses that have identified a real interest in doing a self-study and continuous improvement around their credit for prior learning. And then we also, last year we did 2 different adult learner journey maps of their admissions to enrollment experience. And now we're going to be taking that to the next step, and we're looking at the transition for adult learners from an adult education program into our post-secondary partners. So really excited to really identify what that student journey looks like and how we can continuously improve. And then we do have a very strong adult learner community of practice as well that everyone is welcome to. My next 2 strategies are very much brand new, fresh off the press. Mental health statewide strategy is able to be shared with you for the first time today. So you can see at the QR code, or if you do attend the breakout session with the JED Foundation on how belonging and basic needs impact mental health, you'll also be able to access the new strategy that is out in the Impact Exchange. But we're focused on enhancing student well-being, expanding access to services and resources, reducing stigma, and integrating mental health support across the academic experience. We know that mental health is a major issue across all of our campuses. And so really high level, we have not yet engaged a guiding team to develop out an implementation kind of focus and priorities yet, but we're certainly going to be very engaged with student voice, faculty engagement and training, looking at our resources and crisis management, and then also just broad coordination and communication across our campuses. So really excited to begin working on this at the state level. I know you're all already doing quite a bit on your campuses, but hopefully we can continue to learn from one another. And then the last strategy area that is still in development is our participation in the Lumina Great Admissions Redesign here in Kentucky. And so we have really done some student journey mapping, and we've had several great conversations and meetings with campus partners thinking about how we can help alleviate student stresses and elevate student joy as a part of their college-going experience. We'll be able to hear from a student panel tomorrow of folks that are participating in this student journey mapping experience. And the admissions redesign guiding team and network has really kind of focused in on some very specific barriers that we want to alleviate. One is around accessibility of transcripts, increased dual credit opportunities or dual enrollment opportunities, transparency in financial aid, the proactive communications that we share with our high school students, as well as looking at our community college to university seamless transfer. So there's a lot in there related to admissions redesign, and it's really exciting that we're getting closer. So April is kind of the date when we anticipate that our statewide strategy will be ready for sharing. So that is the update on the work of the collaborative, and obviously it is not just 6 people doing it all. It is 70 plus folks that are, many of you here in this room, that are heavily engaged in helping develop strategy, implement strategy, drive these improvements across our campuses. I've got a QR code here for the Impact Exchange. You can see all of the conference materials are inside the Impact Exchange in a channel for the 2025 Student Success Summit. I hope that, you know, as you go to different sessions today, you'll know that you can access the PowerPoints or, you know, the materials from a session if you're not able to go to all 4 of them. We are repeating them, but they're, you know, you'll pick kind of your top 2. Okay. So I think that that is all for my update, and now I just want to kind of, this is how we're transitioning out from here. We have 4 breakout sessions that'll be happening after we take a quick networking break, and then you'll have an opportunity to go to them again, to choose another one to attend, as they will repeat the exact same session at 4 o'clock. So our first session is on dual enrollment as a college-going and college success strategy, and that is with the Community College Research Center. We have faculty mindset impact on student academic success with Motivate Lab out of the University of Virginia. We have impact of belonging and basic needs on mental health with the JED Foundation. And we also have a session on committing to quality for students, the economy, and democracy. So this is a really fantastic lineup of speakers and concurrent sessions that I hope that you all enjoy. Please feel free to let us know if you have any questions. I'm going to leave that up there.